After the implementation of the fare hikes on our light rail transport system, commuters look forward to a better service and a more reliable operation. One of the main factors needed to ensure this is a well-organized operations and maintenance management, and these services are now to be bid out. To give us more insights into this issue, we have invited to Today's Motoring Forum Attorney Migz Sagcal, spokesperson of the DOTC, or the Department of Transportation and Communications. Welcome to Motoring Today, Migz.
Hi, good afternoon, Butch. Good afternoon to your viewers.
Now, first of all, can you brief our viewers regarding the operations and maintenance contract with the LRT that's up for bidding, its scope, and which part of the LRT shall it cover?
This is the LRT2 operations and maintenance contract. This is the 13.8-kilometer line that currently runs from the Recto station to Santolan in Pasig City. The contract is under the PPP scheme, and the winning concessionaire eventually will run and operate the whole line for a 10 to 15-year period. This will include an extension that we're already working on. We already awarded the contract to extend the Santolan station all the way to Masinag. That's about a 4.2-kilometer extension eastwards to serve our riding public in the Antipolo, Cainta, and other parts of Rizal. So it's a PPP scheme, as I mentioned, and the goal here is to retain on the government side the regulation and ownership of the facility, but to provide better services to the riding public by giving the operations and maintenance the requirement of everyday or day-to-day operational needs to a private sector entity which has better experience in running public facilities.
Migz, can you also give us an idea of some of the big-name possible bidders for the contract?
We received four sets of qualification documents from different groups the other day. These groups are the Aboitiz Equity Ventures Incorporated, which is in partnership with Singapore's SMRT. In Singapore, that's the government-owned entity that runs all its MRT lines. Another group is DMCI, DM Consunhi, which incidentally bagged the construction contract for the 4.2-kilometer extension I mentioned earlier. DMCI is partnered with Tokyo Metro, which is another government-owned entity in Japan which runs the Tokyo Rail system. Another group is the Light Rail Manila 2 Holdings company, which is composed of Ayala and Metro Pacific, and their rail expert in their consortium is RATP, which is another well-known group, this time from France. And the fourth and final group is San Miguel, which is in partnership with Korail. Korail is essentially the equivalent of PNR in South Korea. So these are four well-reputed local conglomerates in partnership with four well-reputed and established rail expert companies from other countries. So we're looking forward to the bid, which will be in the fourth quarter of this year.
How about the process that the bidders would have to go through before the actual bidding and awarding of the contract and its timeline?
Yeah, so we're at the qualification stage right now. That means the four groups that submitted their documents still have to be evaluated whether or not they comply with the bid requirements. And assuming that all four groups comply, then we will be able to confirm within a month's time, by the end of February, that these four groups, or whichever groups do qualify, will be eligible to submit bids, which will include their technical and financial proposals. So there will be at least a 6-month period for the bidding process where the qualified bidders will have the opportunity to meet with our Bids and Awards Committee in one-on-one meetings, where they will be able to candidly express to us their concerns about the bid, any suggestions on improving, any possible tweaking or adjustments to the terms of the bid, until we arrive at the actual bid submission date, which we expect to be sometime at the end of the third quarter or the beginning of the fourth quarter. After that, it will take about a month to evaluate the bids and to find out which among the bidders will actually be given the contract. With that timeline, we should be able to sign the contract by the end of 2015, in which case the contractor, the winning concessionaire, can start by 2016.
Is there a minimum bid required for this contract? And if so, how much?
Well, there's no project cost because this is an operations and maintenance contract. So essentially, it's a service contract. Government will pay the entity a certain amount. In exchange, the entity, the concessionaire, will be responsible for delivering the minimum requirements of the contract. This is unlike most of our other PPPs, which always entail an infrastructure component. So there's a capital expenditure from the concessionaires in our other PPP projects. In this case, no infrastructure, so it's purely operations and maintenance. As of now, there's no minimum bid yet, but it's possible during the bidding process, the 6 months that we discussed earlier, it's possible that the Bids and Awards Committee will set a certain range of bids if it will be needed.
Now, Migz, should everything go smoothly in the bidding process without legal contests, TROs, etc., when is the expected completion and awarding and start of the implementation of this contract?
So we expect to award the contract within the fourth quarter of this year, hopefully by October or November, and give it about a month to the signing of the contract. So we're hoping by December, by the end of 2015, we have a signed contract. And again, with a little transition period of maybe 1 to 2 months, the concessionaire should be able to begin operating the line by the first quarter of 2016.
Digressing a bit, Migz, with the implementation of the controversial LRT fare hike, what should the riding public expect in exchange for their additional financial burden?
Well, what we've always been saying, in fact, is the fare hike is long overdue. The last fare increase for LRT2 or for LRT1 was in 2003. LRT2 has never increased its fares, and MRT3, instead of going up, has always had actually a reduction of fares. So if you look at those factors and you look at the state of our rail systems today, that actually explains why we need to increase the fares, because we need to invest in the infrastructure, in the facilities, and in the improvement of services of our 3 lines. Nevertheless, despite the more than 10 years that have passed without fare increases, without government matching the expenses for running the fares, the rail lines themselves, we have a pipeline of projects, a whole slew of projects for all 3 lines that are lined up. In fact, some have already started. For LRT1, we're extending the line from Baclaran, the current end line, by 11.8 kilometers all the way to Bacoor, Cavite. This will serve about at least, or an estimated 400,000 additional people who reside in these areas. Operations and maintenance will also be given to a private sector entity through the PPP scheme, which is known as Light Rail Manila Consortium. So expected here is more people to benefit from Cavite, from the Cavite extension. Better operations and maintenance, meaning we want to bring it up to world class as much as possible. For LRT2, I mentioned we're extending this to Masinag, and we're also giving the operations and maintenance component to a private sector entity. For MRT3, which seems to be the most controversial, first we have to clarify, it opened at 34 pesos fares. Before we implemented the fare hike, it was at 15 pesos. We implemented the fare hike and brought it up to 28 pesos, which is still 6 pesos lower than the original rates. Nevertheless, what we are working on here is adding 48 new train cars or light rail vehicles to the system. The prototype will arrive in September, and after about a month of testing, 3 to 4 units will arrive per month until we complete the 48. That will shorten queuing time, because the reason why you have a long line at several stations at peak hours because there's no train to ride. So with additional trains, the lines will be lessened. We're also updating the signaling system, which is the safety component. It tells the trains when it needs to stop. If it needs to stop automatically, the signaling system will signal this. It controls essentially the running of the rail system. The signaling system we expect by the third quarter of this year. We have several other projects that I might not need to detail, but traction motor overhauling, the actual overhauling of the train itself. We're doing rail replacement within this week or last week. We should be able to start the rail replacement already, and this again another safety matter. Also, it will speed up the trips for people, because the faster the trains can travel, then the less queuing time as well. So there's about at least 10 projects in the pipeline for MRT, and they're all happening within 2015.
Thanks, Migz, for sharing your time with the viewers of Motoring Today and for those valuable inputs. Before we end, any message to our light rail riding public?
Yeah, thank you, Butch. We'd just like to remind the public that the DOTC and our transport agencies are all focused on modernizing our transport systems. Our railways have been neglected for 15, 20 years. We have not had marked improvements. We have not implemented the necessary, they may not be popular, but the necessary steps and measures to improve our rail lines. We are doing all of them now. And what we can assure the public is that in a matter of a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, you will see world-class services in each of our rail systems.
Attorney Migz Sagcal, spokesperson of the DOTC, our guest this week on Motoring Today's Motoring Forum.